The NDP said, "I am the spokesman for North Shore Métis." I am not a spokesman. I am the representative of the North Shore Métis in the Great King's Domain and Manga Seigneurie Métis community, and I am also a member of the Community Council. Our Métis community is fighting now before the Superior Court of Quebec so that the Métis of our territory can regain their rights, their dignity, and their pride in being Aboriginal. About some comments attributed to me that the NPD on the work ethic of Innu. The NDP has published on its website the following quote: "We all know that the Aboriginals will not keep their job. I have worked for many years for Gulf Pulp of Clark City, which closed in 1968. Many Montagnais worked there. I only remember one who did a good job. There must have been other hard-working amongst them, but I don't recall one name," said the person who is circulating a petition to corner stores of the area, denouncing secret negotiations between the governments and the Innu. Le Soleil, March 2, 2002. We should stop denying that Canadian Aboriginal communities, members of the First Nations, Métis, or Inuit, are living difficulties on levels of education and work, and that they have lived some in the past. To deny this is to want to be willingly blind. I was also referring in my citation at some work done for the Gulf Paper Company in the 1960s. More than 50 years ago, things have changed since that time. Aboriginal people in Canada have risen and taken in hand their future. Some communities, like Washat Manicouagan and Pessimit, have stopped thinking like tenants of the land, and they now act as owners of their lands, and they are now participating actively in the regional economical development of the North Shore. It will not be long, then the other Innu communities will follow their lead. I congratulate them and hope that the Métis community, to which I belong to, will obtain similar results." Concerning what the newspaper Le Soleil had published, and that the NDP had referred to in a petition that I supposedly circulated in the convenience stores of the region of the North Shore, denouncing the secret negotiations between governments and the Innu. I am not the author of that petition. Mr. Stéphane Prou, a contractor in Sept-Îles, was the author of this petition against the secret negotiations of the Common Approach. This petition had accumulated more than 4,500 names, and the said petition by Mr. Stéphane Prou had been delivered to the Duplessis MP for Mr. Normand Duguay. On my opposition to the negotiation of territories, the NPD has published on its website the following quote: "Yesterday, Mr. Forbes said the governments recognize Aboriginal rights over those of white people. This is a heinous politics which brings social tensions, which leads to what is happening in Israel. The Soleil, May 2nd, 2002. When a federal, provincial government or any other types of government secretly negotiate a treaty with a group that constitutes a minority within a population, can secret negotiations cause social tensions? Well, yes. As soon as a minority has more rights than most people, no matter what the ethnic background is, or that these rights are legitimate as they can be, if not properly explained to the rest of the population, there is a risk of social tension. Just look at the world situation to find examples. Israel was an example. South Africa would be another, or Chechnya. On what it costs to comply with the First Nations. The NPD has published on its website the following quote. Do you know how much a featherhead costs? That's a brutal question. I was asked by André Forbes, president of the Association for the Rights of Whites in Sept-Îles, in September of 2002. At the height of the controversy surrounding the agreement in principle with Inuit community, Forbes was referring to how much it costs for the state to fulfill its responsibilities towards Aboriginals. Of course, he had the answer. For you, it's 25 grand. For a prisoner, 50 grand. For an Indian, 100 grand. L'actualité, October 15, 2004. As I said before, I am an Aboriginal, like it or not. Among Aboriginal people, either we are Indians, that is to say, a First Nation member, a Métis, or an Inuit. A featherhead is an Indian. The Métis and the Inuit were not wearing feathers. We are the Métis, the half-blood, mixed bloods, and many other kinds of terms. I could have been wrong on the cost of state responsibilities. According to the data that the Correctional Service of Canada publishes on its website, it costs a lot more money to incarcerate women than it does men, largely because their numbers are fewer. Another factor stems from the need for CSC to provide women offenders with equitable programs and services. In 1998-99, the average annual cost of incarcerating a male offender in a federal institution was $59,661. Broken down by security level of the institution, the average annual cost of incarcerating a male offender was $87,135 for maximum security institutions, $52,688 for medium security institutions, $46,988 for minimum security institutions, and $29,522 for community correctional centers. In 1998-99, the average annual cost of incarcerating a woman offender in one of the new regional facilities was $113,610. One can imagine that the cost would have been higher in 2004 and are higher in 2011. On threats to rights of whites, the NDP has published on its website the following quote. In Sept-Îles, André Forbes warns the newly recognized Innu rights will one day trump his own. He represents an association, he says, is for the protection of white rights. The Innu are telling us now, we're the cowboys and you're the Indians. The National, November 8, 2002. In this quote, there are two distinct points. If the Nistasinan Treaty would have been signed without the Métis being included, we thought at the time, between 1999 and 2002, that we would lose our rights as an Aboriginal group living in the same territory as the Innu. And I will say it again to make it clear. L'Association du droit des Blancs sur le Nistasinan consisted of Métis people. So Aboriginal people, it's only on April 7, 2008 that the Quebec Superior Court guaranteed in a ruling that the ancestral rights of the Métis of my community were protected in the event that the common approach would be signed without us. As an Aboriginal group, as same as the Innus, and living on the same territory, the Métis needed that legal guarantee. Regarding the sentence, the Innu are telling us now, we're the cowboys and you're the Indians. I only recalled the words of the Innu negotiator for the East, who was negotiating the common approach with various levels of government. Mr. Guy Belfleur, words that appeared in an article of Le Soleil newspaper in 2002. When he said, we're going back to the days of the cowboys and Indians, except that the balance of power will be overthrown. Mr. Belfleur also added, the whites will have to pay taxes to the Indians being on their land. Non-natives will be surrounded by natives, or the whites will be in reserves. Do Canadians and political parties will say that a chief negotiator, First Nation member, can make that kind of statement and that a Métis, as I am, cannot question them? Will the NPD put on its website the words of Mr. Guy Belfleur and create another journalistic controversy?